For over 50 years, Walt Disney has turned classic stories into classic animated motion pictures. Now the tradition continues as one of the world's greatest stories becomes the newest Disney motion picture classic, The Little Mermaid.
I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun.
It's the story of Ariel, a beautiful young mermaid who wants to become human.
He's very handsome, isn't he?
I don't know, he looks kind of hairy and slobbery to me.
Not that one, the other one.
And she'll strike a bargain with a powerful sea witch
Have we got a deal?
to make her dream come true.
What I want from you is your voice.
My voice?
You've got it, sweet cakes.
Ariel's been turned into a human.
Have you lost your senses completely? The human world, it's a mess.
Now, the Little Mermaid is exploring the mysteries of her strange new world.
What's your name? What's wrong? You can't speak?
But to regain her voice, the sea witch's spell must be broken.
Move it! We got an emergency here!
Broken by the kiss of true love.
Yes, they do.
It's Walt Disney Pictures' 28th full-length animated motion picture, featuring dozens of delightful new Disney characters and 7 magical new songs.
Sha-la-la-la-la-la, don't stop now. Don't try to hide it. How you wanna kiss me, girl.
This holiday season, share the wonder and magic of a very special entertainment event. A fantastic adventure above the waves and under the sea.
Under the sea. Under the sea.
Walt Disney Pictures, The Little Mermaid.
Welcome back to the show, everybody.
Welcome back.
Listeners. Our Disney series has started.
We're back on Disney. 2 Disney animated classics in a row.
Yes, indeed. Stay tuned, everybody. My name's Pete.
And I'm Scott. And these are the movies that made us gay.
Mm-hmm.
Pete,
Mm-hmm.
we had our friend of the pod, Allison, back on. Allison.
Hello.
Welcome back
Hello.
on. You've been on for Hocus Pocus, Steel Magnolias, and what was your third?
Practical Magic.
Practical Magic last year.
Continuing in my witch-related movie
Yes.
appearances.
Very true.
I love
I mean,
it.
Steel Magnolias is a half because I was a co-guest.
True.
This is
It
true.
wasn't a true Allison joint.
But now we're back.
We're back, and we got to The Little Mermaid, directed
Yes.
by Ron Clements and John Musker, released November 17th, 1989. We got to our Little Mermaid episode. So much fun. I can't
Yeah,
wait
it's about
to
time.
talk about it.
It's about time. There's so much going on in this movie. I love it.
I feel like when I first asked you over 2 years ago to come on our show, you immediately said The Little Mermaid.
We had like either I brought it up or you mentioned it kind of like hypothetically, and either way, there have been discussions about me coming on for Little Mermaid.
Early on.
Very
Yes.
early on, yes.
Hypothetically.
So, okay, no, the Steel Magnolias episode was like it was last year.
Yeah. That was fun, though. We love Steel Magnolias, too. But, I mean, Little Mermaid, it's a classic.
Classique.
I mean, it's classique. There's like Prince Eric running around
I mean,
with those eyebrows.
little gay boys and girls also love mermaids.
There's amazing hairography going
There's
on.
so much choreography in this movie.
God.
I have in my notes, I think that you mentioned it, Ariel's hair, Elaine Bennis at moments.
Well, because even as a child, I was 4 when this movie came out, but I think, so maybe not my first watching, but even at a very young age, the basic construct of her hair and how it worked, like the mechanics behind it.
There's some pretty magical bangs.
And I don't think, but they're not bangs. That's
they're
what
not-
they said too.
they're
I'm
not
like, but
bangs,
they're not
though.
bangs. It's like if
It's a swoop of
It's like
hair.
if you tease, if like you
Yeah.
did a side part and then you teased it. I'm going to tell you exactly how it's done. No, I have no idea. But it's like teased out and then it just sort of brought in front. And I was talking about it the other night and I came to the conclusion that it's Elaine Bennis' hair because there's those early seasons of Seinfeld where also, and this is not animated, it's an actual living human I'm seeing on TV.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the basic mechanics of that hairstyle either. So It's just boggling.
The Elaine Bennis wall of hair.
But
A wall of hair.
But is there a more covetable head of hair in Disney history?
Oh, it's beautiful.
More than Tangled. It's like because the way it moves and
Yeah. That color
like,
red.
It's like lust. Like it. Even now watching it, I'm just like.
Yeah.
Like
The colors
I
become
feel-
iconic.
I mean,
emotions.
it's iconic, and I know that when they were animating it, the hair was a very hot button issue with the producer, Jeffrey Katzenberg, and the animator, that Jeffrey Katzenberg just assumed all mermaids are blonde because Splash had just come out. So he really insisted, like, we have to have a blonde mermaid. And the animators were like, no, it's going to look better underwater, and kind of a dark red when you go in shadows is going to be easier to do than blonde.
And what's so funny is, so I'm a redhead. It's gotten darker as I've gotten older, so I've used, certain chemical magic to bring it back to its luster when I was 6 years old. But I don't think I even realized that I was a redhead this young at this age because it didn't look
Didn't
like
look that.
Sure.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember a classmate's mother had hair this color, and I came home one day and I think I pointed her out to my mom at some open house thing. I said, look, she's got hair like Ariel, and I think that was the day I learned that that's not a color that actually grows out of people's
Fire
heads.
engine red hair doesn't quite
Yeah.
grow out of the head.
Nature.
So from a hair standpoint, I actually related to Belle. I was like, well,
Sure.
other little girls. I'm like, well, you're not Belle. I'm Belle because I have the brown hair. But actually, I have red hair, but I didn't. Disney made me not see myself, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that red hair, it's like it does not exist in nature, but she's a mermaid. So,
And the way it moves, it just.
taken inspiration from astronaut Sally Ride and videos of her in a weightless environment.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
sure.
The movement.
Yep.
Makes sense.
The
That makes
animators-
sense.
The animators studied some of that footage to get that weightlessness to Ariel's hair. So yeah, they took a lot of inspiration from all over the place for the character of Ariel, for a lot of the characters in this movie that we'll definitely get to. But I mean, this movie came out in 1989, like we said,
November of '89. Yep.
Yeah, I do have memories of seeing it in the theater. I was a kid, but significantly older than the two of you. So I do remember seeing
I love
it
how
in the
you always
theater.
mention that in every single episode of the show.
I mean, when movies came out in the 90s and you were 2 and I was fully 10,
I think I do that more than I realize to my younger coworkers too. I'm like, well, I am significantly older than you. And they're like, you're not in the grave. And I was like, you need to know that I've lived.
I've got one foot in the grave at this point. But-
So, do you remember seeing this in the theater then, or what do you remember about seeing it in the theater?
I remember just really loving it. I remember loving the music, loving the songs, thinking Ariel was just super cool. She's 16. She knows what she wants. Mm-hmm. Come on, she's grown.
Yeah.
No, she's a child. She's a small child.
I mean, this
16.
was like ye olden days when you would get hitched when you were over 16.
Well, and the age 16 is one of the things that they pull from the Hans Christian Andersen story.
Okay.
Storybook.
Yeah. But I remember thinking, just being a mermaid. Sure. Sounds great. Looks awesome.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. Prince Eric, just thinking Prince Eric was very, very attractive.
Oh, yeah.
I did, even at that time, I knew who that voice actor was. Even being 10 or whatever, 11,
And-
I was like, yeah, I know.
And we've learned that I did not know who the voice actor was until this very afternoon.
Christopher Barnes.
Christopher Daniel Barnes.
Yep.
You listeners may know him as Greg Brady from the Brady Bunch movies. I also remembered him from the Starman television series based on the movie Starman.
Based on the movie Starman with
Yes.
Jeff Bridges. Interesting. Okay.
And
Was he son of Starman?
and Marion Ravenwood. Yes, he was
Okay.
son of Starman. And the Starman in the show was played by Robert Hayes from Airplane
Love it.
fame. And he was son of Starman. He was a teenager. He also just did a lot of like Disney Channel stuff. So like I just remember I knew his face.
Not to be
got a
confused
great
with
face.
DJ's boyfriend from Step by Step,
Scott Weimer.
because he voiced Aladdin.
He was Aladdin. years later.
Those two actors probably get that confusion a lot.
Probably.
Even though they look nothing alike.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they just have that, like, white guy with dark hair.
White guy with dark hair with
fluffy,
a really affable,
Yeah.
non-threatening white guy energy. Yeah.
The fluffy, dark, like Tom Hanks 80s hair, you know, that kind of thing going on. Prince Eric, though, just had that dark hair with blue eyes.
Giant.
Beautiful,
And, like-
thick, dark eyebrows, too.
Yeah,
I love that in a
yeah.
man.
Yes.
And, I mean, obviously, King Triton...
Daddy Triton, I have that in my
just, like,
notes.
shirtless,
Yep.
running around, nips out.
We were, during watching the movie, we're speculating about the Daddy Triton fan art that
mean-
I'm sure exists somewhere on DeviantArt.
I was just about to say, just don't
Live
let him
journal.
do
Just put,
DeviantArt.
just like animate a harness on Triton, and he's good to go to DILF this Saturday.
Now, do you? I guess you can't animate a bulge because that's the magic that he could like pull the fins.
Not on the
Sorry,
fish. Yeah.
I've gone too far deep in. I'm going to pull back a little.
not on the fish. Eric was wearing very interesting kind of like riding pants. I don't know what was going on with Eric's pants. They're almost like David Bowie in Labyrinth, kind of like that riding pant.
Well, they have to fit into the giant boots.
The giant boot, yeah, exactly.
When I was a kid, I always liked his shipwreck look of when he washes up on the beach with Ariel.
yeah, the white shirt.
Yep.
So okay,
Well, what were your memories of first seeing this movie? We should probably round that corner first.
So I was thinking about that because I'm trying to remember if I saw it in the theaters or if I saw it at home because I was 4 years old. Like I remember seeing.
We're roughly the same age.
Yeah.
too.
So like
Yep.
I remember like if you had asked me what year it came out and I like just to guess, I probably would have guessed 93 because I feel like all my memories about it, I
Right.
feel like we're in elementary school, but I guess not either that or it just stood the test of time. But
I mean, it just goes to show how huge this movie was.
Yeah.
and home video.
It did feel
too, yeah.
new even in 91, 92, and 93.
I
Just
rem-
because of home video, yeah.
I remember my dad really liking Under the Sea and being like, it's a very good song.
He's right.
I remember that, you know, when you were little girls and you were all trying to like pretend to be Ariel, that it wasn't, we didn't, you know, and you were trying to sing and you were just trying to sing and get, you know, attention. You weren't singing part of your world. We were all singing the
Yes.
that was the song
Yeah.
that we all, that like, I feel like that song, that might have even been sung at some weird like elementary kindergarten
Ariel doing
recital.
like scales.
Yeah, basically. It's like Ariel's version of doing runs. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, my sister has recently told me, and I think that she's mentioned this before, when I texted her that we were doing this movie, she immediately called me and was like, okay, you could not, you probably don't remember this because you were maybe like 4 years old
You were a baby.
when we saw
4,
this.
yeah.
That she remembers us going to this movie with our mom, and when we were leaving the Judith Theater in Lewistown, me just being like enamored with it. Of just that, she said.
You were just like you.
She said, I told my mom somebody made that movie.
Oh my God.
Somebody
God.
drew and made that movie.
Like just the magic of animation.
Somebody
like
created it. And my sister
I
says that
love
she
that.
always remembers me saying that.
and her being like, "Oh my God!" Like that's one of those like oddly wise things that parents always say that their children say on Facebook, but they don't actually know.
Like,
but you actually
your
said
kid
it.
didn't say that. Be quiet, Robin. Your kid didn't say that.
But yeah, but 4-year-old me that could barely form sentences.
You just like it,
Yeah.
like it like something switched in your brain, and you were just in a trance. I love that you had that. Someone can tell you. I actually was thinking about that today. I was driving over. I was like, I should have called or texted one of my parents and asked them, because once I realized what year it came out, it's like I should have asked them like if they have any memories about it, about what I thought of it.
So I saw it with my sister in the movie theater, and I remember really, really enjoying it. And I remember my sister just kind of being like, it was fine.
It was fine.
But I think her thing was that she just kind of thought that Ariel was a spoiled brat.
Okay, I get that.
And I think it
Sure.
wasn't until Beauty and the Beast came out that she was like, Team Belle all the way. Because Team Belle like read books and didn't need no man and all that.
I think as I watched it as an older, like I always loved, like this was, if you'd asked me like, if you asked me like, what's your favorite Disney movie?
Yeah.
Like certainly like all like the Disney classics, I would always say Little Mermaid, #1 with the bullet.
Yeah.
But I definitely feel like I had a similar feelings about Ariel when I rewatched one of like the many times I rewatched it as I've grown older. Though now I have some new takes on it a little bit now about how Ariel's, which we'll get into. But yeah, that's not. How old was your sister when you went to see it? I
mean, if I was 10, she was 13.
Okay.
Junior higher.
Yeah.
And she probably was also like right at that age where she's like preteen, so she's like, I'm a little too cool for this.
Yeah.
Like a source of pride to like not be into a Disney animated
cartoons.
movie.
Yeah, kind of a thing. And it was really the first one in a while that felt so much like the old-fashioned fairy tales. You know? Before this, we had Oliver and Company, which we didn't even see in the theater. We were both like,
I think I did.
miss me with that one. We didn't care.
I also didn't really grow up on Oliver and Company, too.
Oliver and Company, like, the music was like, oh, Billy Joel.
Billy Joel.
Wow,
you know what kids love is Uptown Girl.
The piano man.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could also say that about what if kids love Phil Collins, and now that's like a whole subsection of TikTok. It's just people
how hard he went.
talking about how hard it's like
he really,
it's literally its
he really
own
went that hard.
subcategory just in TikTok.
But
of
that's
people
the
flipping out
thing,
about
though.
the songs.
Phil Collins went hard on those Tarzan songs, and Oliver and Company songs just kind of sound like I'm like Billy Joel and I'm singing about like
Billy
New York
Joel.
City, you know. And it was like, okay, I guess. So, and the thing was, at that time, I was at 10-year-old me, huge Bette Midler fan. You know?
Of course you were.
She's the poodle in that movie.
You know, and she's the poodle in that, and that even didn't bring me in to Oliver and Company. Like, my sister and I just kind of looked at each other and we were like, eh. We actually had just gone to Walt Disney World for the first time.
Do you remember seeing Oliver and Company stuff when you were there?
I remember seeing maquettes of Ariel and looking at Amy and going, what is this mermaid movie that's going to be happening?
That's so cool.
Right? And then seeing Oliver and Company stuff and just being like, I don't know, the songs are weird, we don't care, so we didn't see it. Then before that was Rescuers Down Under.
Well, Rescuers Down Under was animated at the same time as The Little Mermaid. And Rescuers Down Under actually came out in 1990.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Well,
but
we did
released
see it.
pretty much back to back.
Yeah.
Well, apparently the trailer said that this was the 28th full-length Disney movie, and I was like, and I was thinking, and when they said that, I went, I knew there were ones before, and I knew this started a new
But 27
trend.
of
But I was
them?
27. I was like trying to do the math. I'm like, I'm not even going to begin to get that
we can't.
number.
And there's also weird ones like, you know, Melody Time and like all the crazy like Donald Duck, Three Caballeros.
Sleepy Hollow
ones,
and,
like,
and The Winds in the Willow is technically
But are
one
those
of them.
count.
But are those full length? I
They
think
are.
I always viewed them as like shorts.
They're a bunch of shorts stitched together. So
that doesn't count.
I think that was sort of
it saved the money.
especially
in the 40s.
for The Wind in the Willows and Sleepy Hollow, which that was a time that they really had to downsize animation because they were underperforming a little bit. So they just sort of had to make these condensed animated movies.
But, you know, coming out of the 70s...
Yeah, I mean, it was a very dark time.
And going into
in
the
just the
80s,
company of Walt Disney in general.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was
Well, 'cause he
almost
had
sold off
died
and, like, sectioned off.
Yeah.
Animated movies had just really underperformed all throughout the 70s and the 80s.
Yes. I know that we, as a family, we really liked Robin Hood.
See our Robin Hood episode.
My sister really has an affection for the first Rescuers because that was the first movie that my parents took my sister to in the theater, and she was like 2 years old.
I love that.
And my
I love
mom
the
was like,
Rescuers.
we had no business taking you to the movies. You were way too little. You were a baby. But, you know, it was the first movie she had seen in the theater as a human person. And, you know, so, like, yeah, coming out of the 70s, going into the 80s, it was like Fox and the Hound, you know, like, we don't... And also...
I realized something that I've seen. I had this old, like, book of like Disney. It was like a storybook of like all these stories but with the Disney animation. I remember as a kid being like, I don't know any of these, and like to this day, I think my only like picturing that animation in my head of like Wind of the Willows or Sleepy Hollow are just from that book. I realize I've seen almost none of these.
Yeah,
like Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Snow White, and then I know I've seen Rescuers and Aristocats, but
Pinocchio.
Oh, Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, We were also the first kind of generation of kids to have a VCR in the house, right?
You would have had to wait until a re-release of them to see them prior to home video.
You know, Allison, we were talking earlier about working at Blockbuster.
Yes.
We both put in our time at Blockbuster.
Yes.
And so you remember the whole, like, Disney MOR, like the moratorium thing.
Put that shit back in the vault.
I remember less so from working from Blockbusters, but more from the TV ads, like being released from the vault, and they're like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, at Blockbuster they had a code. It was MOR, and it was moratorium, because Disney would be like, there would be the re-release, put them all out, and then they would fucking yank that shit,
and that was just for sale. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think even from like video stores,
I mean, you couldn't just have a store copy that you would rent out.
I think you could rent. I think you could rent out. It was specifically the for sale.
Yeah.
That they
pulled them.
Yeah. Which they that was the whole thing about the Disney Vault. That was still in play up until like less than 10 years ago.
Oh, I want to say that I got some of our Blu-rays on the last re-release of all of them. That they were starting to re-release Blu-rays that they had already done before. Like, I have 2 Blu-rays of The Lion King and Sleeping Beauty. And that all came crashing down when digital streaming came on the scene.
And it's like, well, let's just lean into it. I mean, bravo that you could... I mean, that is some big dick energy.
Yeah.
That you're like, up until into the 2000s, you're like, nope, we're not going to release these. We decide when you can buy stuff from us. Like...
Well, and also, like, that I think that they did this with Pinocchio in the 80s, that they did the re-release of Pinocchio, made money, and then put it on video, and then made money.
A theatrical re-release,
Yep.
I had so many of the Disney movies in those old clamshells.
Oh, yeah.
And my mother gave them away. I was so pissed at her. I'm more pissed now as an adult when I was like, oh, yeah, those could go for... a lot of money, but I was just mad because I'm like, you don't. She was like, well, you're a teenager, you don't watch. I'm like, you don't know me.
I mean, just
you don't know my life, Lori.
Lady.
Allison, just go to Amoeba, and you can pick them up.
But I shouldn't have to. They were mine.
You already had them.
I already had them, and I was for like $40 for them. I also don't have the space for.
Yeah. So, at the time, like, the Disney classics were there. There was the 40s and the 50s and the fairy tale movies. But coming out of the 70s and into the 80s, they weren't these fairy tale classics. They were, things like Robin Hood and things like, The Rescuers was a book and 101 Dalmatians was a book. But they weren't these Grimm's fairy tales.
Yeah. Or trying to take chances on the Black Cauldron series by Lloyd Alexander, and that massively underperformed.
And they were also just
Disney.
Dipping their toe into like the original song stuff.
Yes.
Yes.
So, which leads us into The Little Mermaid.
Yeah. I mean, The Little Mermaid, being kind of their first fairy tale movie
since Sleeping Beauty, pretty much.
Was Sleeping Beauty the last one? Was it Snow
I
White?
think so.
Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty? I don't know the order.
Just because like after that they were like Alice in Wonderland isn't really like it's like a little bit more in the modern
Well, and
era.
also Alice in Wonderland is before Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty came out in like 58.
Right.
I'm realizing I have zero idea of the timeline of any of those.
So, but yeah, and then after that, like all in the 60s, like I was saying, going into Jungle Book, 101 Dalmatians, things like that. I guess Robin Hood kind of is a fairy tale, but not really. So yeah, going back to those old fairy tale properties, it had been the first one in like 30 years or something. And then again, doing this thing with the original music and kind of treating this movie as a stage production.
Yeah,
that was. I mean, that's been confirmed that they literally approached it as. And broke it out in terms of the music, the pacing, the plot.
Yeah,
it was all a Broadway musical, and that set the stage for the next.
Yes.
I think every other Disney movie they've done since.
You can almost kind of break it down into a formula, starting with this movie and going into Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and all of that was big opening number. Then the. What did you call it? Like the Wish song?
It's called an I Want song.
I Want song.
And so for Belle, it's...
Part of Your World.
For Belle, I was like...
Oh, for Belle, I'm sorry. Yeah. Provincial Town.
Yeah, Provincial Town. Like, damn, it's going to drive me. Yeah, part of Your World. God, I had like a list of 5
Well,
in
and
my
also
head.
the "I Want" song in this movie is pretty much repurposed from Little Shop of Horrors, too.
Well, we have to talk about
So
Howard
we have
Ashman.
to talk about. Let's talk a little bit about
Wow.
Howard Ashman. That Howard Ashman, I believe, came at the recommendation of David Geffen.
Yes.
When they were developing this movie, I know this great guy that is a very talented offstage and Broadway lyricist, and you should work with him on this movie. So David Geffen recommended Howard and Alan for this movie.
So we also have to talk about the fact that in the 80s, because the Disney animated features were not the powerhouse, properties that we know them today, Disney kind of did something that they had never done, which was branch out to movie studio executives that ran big companies,
Yep.
that ran theatrical companies, to bring them in and say pretty much, hey, save Disney. And what do you think?
Michael Eisner, the CEO, I believe, was from Paramount.
Paramount.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They had also just opened, like, I think in like the early mid 80s, the like Disney stock prices were like not doing great because it was few years after Walt Disney World had opened,
Yep.
and it obviously cost a ton of money, and it hadn't rendered as much profit as they were expecting it to.
Yep. Yeah, the early days of Walt Disney World in Florida, it was not like it was not how it is now.
And they were also even developing stuff like Disney Tokyo, which Disneyland, like they sourced that out to another company
Yeah.
too. So they didn't even develop their own park in Japan
Yes.
at that time.
So Jeffrey Katzenberg comes in. He's a big hot shot Hollywood executive. Doesn't know a damn thing about making animated features, but luckily he's friends with David Geffen from the Geffen Company, Geffen Records, all of that.
And
stuff.
David Geffen puts a lot of cash behind Broadway plays too.
And he got recommended Howard Ashman, who had just come off of a success with the Little Shop of Horrors Broadway show. The thing about Howard Ashman being, becoming this Disney kind of like legend, which he is now at this point, is that he is an openly gay Jewish man from Baltimore who came from the theater, and his big hit is this subversive, weird show campy show about man-eating plants.
Yeah, it's a man-eating plant that's definitely like a drag character. There's a number about a man who's just like, I love inflicting pain.
Yeah.
Do.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, Disney, use him. And they were like, sure, let's do it. I don't know how it didn't take some crazy convincing. Katzenberg was just like, I think Katzenberg
It was a Hail Mary pass. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it was.
Yeah.
This was the thing. Like, my eyes are coming, and they're like, "Hey, you got to figure out how to do this, and be profitable, and like not a ton of overhead."
Yeah.
It's a great, honestly.
But yeah, you're right. I think Howard probably came cheap, right? He probably was cheap because even though Little Shop of Horrors was huge, he's not Andrew Lloyd Webber. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's just like this young kid.
And also Howard was coming off of a flop Broadway musical with Jodie Benson that he probably just needed work too.
Well, I think they wanted just like fresh blood. In fact, I think I remember thinking that they were these young kind of hip subversive artists, and they were hesitant to work with Disney because it seemed like this conservative company.
Totally.
Yeah.
I would be if I was in that position to be like, what? Why do you want us? Like, what? There's got to be a catch somewhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Katzenberg just saw maybe he just saw dollar signs.
Like he obviously went to the movie Little Shop of Horrors and he saw something is working about this movie and what works here can translate to what we're doing.
Yeah. So I mean, Howard Ashman comes in, brings with him
Alan Menken
as a composer.
Still a staple of Disney as well.
Yes. I mean, how many Oscars does Alan Menken have?
I mean, he won one for Aladdin, Pocahontas. I mean, he should have won for Tangled, but that didn't quite happen.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so we have these two guys in who, I mean, kind of changed the course of everything as far as how these musicals move
are done to this
forward.
day,
Yeah.
essentially.
The only thing for me is I feel like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin have these big, fun opening numbers. And I feel like Little Mermaid's opening number is a little...
Well, their big fun. You're right. Their big fun number is later in Under the Sea.
Yes.
I mean,
but the other ones have that, like Beauty and the Beast has Be Our Guest and Aladdin has Friend Like Me, and that's that one.
Maybe they just learn. I mean, they kept improving. It's like a recipe you make. You always you keep improving it over time and honing
because this one starts a little bit more quiet.
I think that
what is it, Fathoms Below.
Well,
it's a song.
It's a bunch of dudes going. Oh,
yeah, it's just like it's a shanty.
It's exactly.
But
a shanty.
Beauty and the Beast starts off like, I mean, get out of here. That song, like, there goes the big girl with the straight like always. Like, that song is huge,
I mean,
but it also leads in.
I mean, you could say that maybe that they... I mean, because that really is more traditionally like a Broadway number that starts that number. So you could, again, this is complete speculation, but, maybe they weren't quite ready to have it be a cut and dry. That literal. So this was like, and then they saw, oh, well, this is the stuff that worked in Little Mermaids. Let's just go all in for this later stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But I mean, Beauty and the Beast also starts in kind of a bummer note. So there's this guy. He kind of sucked, but he didn't know any better. And then, he was really shitty to just the wrong bitch. And now he's a grotesque monster in this castle. And who will ever learn to love the Beast?
He effed around and found out.
Yes, literally. Thank you. Exactly.
I think The Little Mermaid does a really great job in those opening scenes at world building. That you're starting on the outside, what sort of what Ariel is trying to like be a part of, and then we dive literally under the ocean.
There's this whole other world that no one knows about.
I think it's super successful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I remember, we had Disney Channel off and on growing up. Didn't always have it.
When there was a deal on the cable package.
Because all those years, all our early years, Disney was premium. Like, it's basic cable now, but it was premium cable back then. You had to pay, like, HBO and Showtime and all that for Disney. So we'd get it off and on. And I remember every now and then they'd be, like, little behind the scenes, little making of stuff. And when they would talk about the bubbles that they animated for this movie, hand drawing, like, all these, just being like, what the hell?
I was thinking about the bubbles just watching it because I've seen Little Mermaid dozens of times.
Oh, yeah, countless.
But I was trying to think in leading up to this episode. I was trying to think when was the last time I watched it, and I even turned to Billy, and he and I have been together for 11 years, and I was like, "We've watched Little Mermaid together, right?" And he's like, "Yes." Just assume that we've seen all of the things together at this point. But I'm like, I feel like it probably was like early on in a relationship. I maybe haven't seen it in almost a decade.
Oh wow.
I don't know what is time.
Exactly.
But I was noticing the bubbles just now. We were watching. I was like, what a pain! It looks cool, but what attention to detail!
Yeah,
wow.
Because you just can't have them swimming around without them.
Oh yeah,
you need
it really sells.
You need some sort of a dimension with it.
It sells the underwater stuff really well.
I was also in the same vein. I was also really appreciating or realizing that I'd always found the Foley work in this movie very satisfying to listen to, but I never really thought about it. But you hear like the little click click of like the of Sebastian's
his little like claws, or
whatever. You even hear if you listen to like the dialogue or subject, like you hear little bits of like the subtle notes of water that they put into
like
the
kind of
sound
moving around them,
but like never too much and never too little. And I was just in awe of it. But this whole movie is kind of like there's a lot of ASMR stuff going on.
It could also have been our Samsung soundbar.
Ooh.
We do really have a nice TV and a soundbar.
You do have a very well. I mean, you guys you guys take your TV and movie watching very seriously.
Yes,
even
indeed.
if you didn't do a podcast, I would expect nothing less of you.
But yeah, you're right. All that stuff kind of speaks to everything that they put into this movie and how all these years later it looks. It's
the color palette.
And it's hand drawn. It's a hand drawn movie, which we don't see a lot of anymore.
But even in the and maybe I'm dead wrong. Please, if so, please tell me. But I feel like these earlier hand drawn movies, I can't remember. Certainly not before Little Mermaid. The color palette they use, like different themes and having it change so drastically, and like the way like light reflects off skin. You know, at the towards the end of the movie, where like the sky is purple, and then it kind of tints everything around.
Yes.
It sort of in these cooler blue.
It affects
tones.
the water.
And I was like, I don't know if a lot of the hand drawn animation or classic animation movies did that as much as Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
It's just this is the cheesiest thing ever, but it's a feast for the eyes.
No, it
legitimately.
really is.
The character's design that I noticed in this viewing of Ariel was certain scenes she'll be very cartoonish, and then certain scenes they're really dipping into the realism.
It's like
where she's lying with Eric on the beach.
Yeah.
Yes.
That it's a little more to scale.
Sometimes they look, and sometimes depending on the angle, it looks like a completely different, like they're not as consistent. But yes, the detail, it kind of makes me think of like, this is what ultimately led to Ren and Stimpy, where it's like, where it's the animation that you zoom in and it's just like
the hyper
biological.
The hyper close up, like well, Disney does a thing where they have I forgot what they're called, like lead animators, where like one person, like somebody doesn't come in and just draw an entire scene.
Yeah, of course.
Somebody comes in and just draws Ariel, just draws Flounder, just draws, you know,
the lead animator for Ursula was this person.
So and so. So it's very interesting that they do that kind of thing where it's like, I'm going to handle all of this one character. But even so, you're right. There's some times when it looks maybe a little off model, which you don't usually see in feature-length animation.
You see it in graphic novels and comic books, honestly, where someone turns an angle and you're like, maybe they were not focusing on this person as much.
Or animated shows that are, you know, for television that they'll have to do 5 a week. You know, you're like you said, Ren and Stimpy. Or
unless those animated styles are like a very base specific look. But if you're trying to go for any type of realism in how this character looks, then that's when the consistency sometimes. Yeah. But there's something nice about it.
What I always found very interesting about all the under the sea, underwater stuff in this movie is how dark it is.
Yeah,
because
it's not too colorful.
It's very dark underwater, and they went for this very specific
to be the bottom of the ocean floor.
Yeah. And then when you watch something like Nemo, you know, it's very bright and colorful, and the sun's shining through, and the
colors are a little muted when they're in the water.
But you also notice that a lot of the fish are also like, maybe that's also so that we can make. As I was thinking, like an Under the Sea, like these fish are so colorful, and they're so. That also might be a design choice for, especially like those big numbers, because they want those colors to pop.
Yeah, exactly. More. Yeah. I do love the amount of different kind of like sea life in Under the Sea. It's very cool.
A lot of sea-related wordplay. There was some really impressive rhyming.
Howard, though.
Like, I'd be so fucking pleased with myself if I wrote something that rhymed with crustacean. I'd be like, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna stop here for the day.
You know, and again, that's like, to bring it back to Howard, that's like, so that's why he was able to do what he did. Like, that's why all those Oscars came, you know, because like he's this lyricist that was able to write these songs that are so clever. Even Part of Your World, that you just think, that's part of your world. It's just like a fun little, you know, not fun, but I mean, it's like, it's kind of a love song. It's inspirational, but when you listen to it,
the lyrics are so beautiful.
So clever.
That's the Disney formula. That's also, you know, I'm realizing this just now as you're saying it. Like, that's become like the standard for really good, for like what makes like a good children's film and what makes the ones that are classic is you get something for the adults and something for the kids. So it's something that can appeal and it's hooky. Yeah. But then you have enough wit and cleverness and maybe underlying themes or sometimes sometimes just a good old fashioned double entendre.
Yes.
And that's what makes these movies stand the test of time. Totally. And that's now become the thing that like Disney has. Like, I think all children movies try to do this, but Disney has got it down really well.
So, in Little Shop of Horrors, the, what is it, the I Want song?
It's
type of song?
somewhere that's,
but what did I say? It's not the I Wish, it's
I Want song.
I Want song. So the
Yep.
I Want song, one of the I Want songs in Little Shop
Somewhere
of
That's
Horrors
Green.
is Somewhere That's Green.
Sung by Ellen Green. So good.
Ellen Green.
She always breaks my heart in that movie.
If you have not seen Little Shop of Horrors, come on, you guys, go find it, rent it, please come over.
Rent it and then
watch
listen to our
Laserdisc.
episode.
This just so you guys were gonna do Little Mermaid later. This has just become the Little Shop of Horrors episode.
I mean,
which honestly,
I love Skid Row. I think that song's beautiful.
Suddenly Seymour is
Suddenly
so beautiful
Seymour.
too.
if you think about it, if you're talking about like big opening numbers, Skid Row's also kind of subtle. If you're thinking about like Fathoms, like
True,
it's pretty.
Yeah. But it becomes this like triumphant song. But Somewhere That's Green is her I Want song, and she's thinking about, she wants to get out. They live in Skid Row. They're poor. She's got an abusive boyfriend, all of that. And she wants to get out and live in a house like in, Better Homes and Gardens and just have that 50s white picket fence life. And the refrain is Somewhere That's Green. And in The Little Mermaid, part of your world, there's a little bit of the hook that sounds kind of similar.
And also, I kind of think now, when listening to both of those songs back to back, that written by a gay man, isn't it just very part of your world, Somewhere That's Green?
Yeah.
Just sort of this gay man wanting to be accepted by society.
Absolutely.
Too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I read this really great article from SmithsonianMag.com
classy.
that talked about just like Little Mermaid's even more subversive than you realize. And I knew as an adult the Ursula and the dragon and the inspiration with Divine, but all the other and then of course once I read some of it, I was like, oh, some of this I noticed, and some of it's like, how did I not notice this? Like she's literally in the closet / cavern, but the interesting thing to go back to like I Want songs, which is very interesting, is like there's not, you tend to try to have them early on, but you can make, as long as they're in the first act, it's fine. Like a good example is Wizard and I from Wicked.
Oh, okay.
That's like halfway through the first act.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I guess one could argue that maybe there are other I Want songs, but that's a straight, this is a person talking about what they dream could be.
Yeah. I mean, we got to talk about Ursula.
We got to talk about Ursula.
Such a fun... There's a reason why as an adult, I mostly just sing along to Poor Unfortunate Souls, because it's so fun!
I mean, do you remember where you were when you, found out that it was kind of based on Divine?
I think I was in college when I first figured that out.
Yeah.
I think it was early years of college.
Yeah.
And I didn't watch a lot of the John Waters classics until 10 years ago, too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was one of those things where it's I knew who Divine was, but yeah, I don't think that I had sat down to watch, Pink Flamingos for,
It's really interesting that when you look at the concept art for Ursula, all of the references and concept art that they went through before they settled on
the octopus.
I guess that Pat Carroll says that she's technically a squid.
But so was she not even anything with tentacles?
Because she doesn't have
No, she's not. She was an angelfish at one point. She was a lionfish.
Interesting.
At one point.
She was skinny. She was fat.
Yeah.
They went to skinny, and then they settled on the bigger lady is kind of the funner character to animate.
Well, and also there's a tried and true trope, like Disney animation movies in general of making fat people be automatically being the villain.
True. So, how much credence do we put behind B. Arthur getting hired?
We've heard that
quitting.
That she did.
That's right.
She did some vocals.
Yeah.
And they did a little bit with it with her, but she just decided to exit.
Here's my take.
Oh,
on
not
this.
just. I'd always heard it, or I remembered it as being they were just it's nothing. It's not on paper. It seems like it should work.
I think
but
they
it
got her in the
didn't
studio
quite.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
And it just did, and it didn't.
Here's my take.
Okay.
Here's my take. When you watch a lot of the documentaries, Howard is very hands-on to the point of
this is how you should say the line.
readings.
Yeah.
This is how you should sing it. Sing it like this. And when you actually can listen to demos of Howard singing Under the Sea,
I think I've
and
heard
Part
those
of Your
on,
World,
YouTube,
and
yeah.
it sounds exactly like
the inflections are all the same,
All
and
the
yes.
And I think maybe B. Arthur was a little bit I know how to sing this.
Yeah.
So do you want me to sing it?
I've been in this business
Yeah.
for thousands of
I
years.
was in the Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah. Maybe Elaine Stritch would have gone along with the with the line readings, but I think B was like,
Is this a version
Sorry,
of Lane
kid.
Stritch where
Yeah.
she was open to anyone's bullshit? Because all the stories I hear about Lane Stritch do not match with that
okay.
theory.
Do you think she would have had the same attitude?
Well,
like,
again,
stop giving me line. You want me or do you want?
To be fair, most of my
Yeah.
stories I've heard about Elaine Stritch are like the last 20 years of her life. So maybe
True,
she was
true.
more of a team
This was
player.
30 years
She
ago. we
was
don't know.
she was almost Dorothy on the Golden Girls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But B.R. theater, you can picture it.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And you think about it and you go, that would have been and to be fair, 90% of my knowledge of B. Arthur is from Golden
Yeah,
Girls.
yeah,
But
same.
it would have been an entirely different performance. It would have been an
I think
entirely different
so,
character.
yeah.
It might have worked in a different way, but it wouldn't have been that.
I think Pat Carroll did just such a. I mean, come on,
It
It's
gets just
I like-
she's like
and I
she
like
is
those-
leaning into every
And I
fucking
like
second.
those interviews that Pat gives where she talks about being directed and like, oh, you should say it this way, of Howard like telling her and her just being like, oh, okay, all right, I got it. And just her being very game with the direction.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
And I feel like in general, if you're a voice actor, like there's a lot like do it the way the person you don't know how it's going to look
Right.
visually.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
go with it.
yeah.
as a-
Voice
differently than you would if it was something you were being filmed
Right.
or on a stage.
Voiceover is very different than But we talked a little bit about pop versions of songs. Scott, you mentioned
There's a Jonas
Off
Brother.
mic.
There's a Jonas Brother cover of this.
Yeah, you asked me.
Yeah.
Like after that, everybody goes, "Have
Yeah.
you heard the Jonas Brothers version?" I got no, and I think I'm good. Thank you very much. Nothing against. Listen,
It's pretty ridiculous.
There's a
Check it out. It's cute.
There's a couple Jonas Brothers songs that I like. That
Yeah.
Sucker song, I had that on.
Sucker is so good.
Sucker is a very, very good song. It is a textbook earworm.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm
Yeah.
real good.
But yeah,
that?
so that was on kind of like a kids bop version of like we're gonna have like
I think that it was just sort
Disney kid stars.
I think it was pop covers
Yeah,
of the
did pop-
classics.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Disney
there's like
Kid Stars.
they were just like, I gotta just fill up this track listing. Come on.
totally. But like we were talking a little bit about the pop versions of songs from Disney animated movies, which kind of became a staple after this. Like we were saying, this kind of set the groundwork for the stage production style and all of that. But certain things they kind of perfected as they moved forward.
Yeah.
This movie almost being like a little bit of an experiment with that.
Well, you also think too, like you think about the source material, and it's like it's dark as hell.
Oh, it's a fucking downer. Yep.
But like you kind of like, what did you? They knew they were going to change it,
Yeah.
and they'd never really done anything like that where they changed it so drastically from the source material. Unless I'm wrong. I mean, maybe Sleepy Hollow a little ish.
No,
But-
I mean Sleepy Hollow's pretty. That's pretty close to the
But,
source
like,
material.
Who at Disney? Maybe it was Eisner who said we're going to buy this and we're going to make this into like
Right.
what.
Well, I think
What did you see?
well,
Besides the fact
this
that
was-
mermaids might be like having a moment.
Yeah.
What did you see? What did you
This
zero
was
in on?
pitched by one of the directors. I think that it was Ron Clements. Ron Clements had. They just had these brainstorming ideas of what do you got, and one of them was a futuristic take on Treasure Island,
Ooh, what? That'll never work.
which they decided to. We're not gonna do this idea
hold
right
off
now
on
because
that.
that sounds a little
Yeah.
crazy, and they took the Little Mermaid idea.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's backtrack a little bit because my mother got my sister and I a Grimm's fairy tale book, very much like the big Barnes and Noble, the big bound
Those big-
tomes,
yeah.
But this was the '80s, so it wasn't that. But it was a big Grimm's fairy tale book, and we always asked her to read Cinderella because when the
shoe
prince
filling.
was coming around to try on that damn shoe in everybody's feet, the stepsisters cut off their heels and their toes
Yep.
to fit into the shoe. And then when he found out that they lied, he made them put on iron shoes that were like in the fire, like red hot iron shoes, and dance around in red hot iron shoes.
Which is actually very
And
similar to the Little Mermaid
until they
stuff.
die.
Doesn't something happen to their eyes too?
Birds. I think birds pick out
Birds
their
pick
way.
out
Is that
their-
Cinderella's
and that's
sisters?
I think so.
And I
just
think that's worked into the woods a little
It's
bit.
into the woods.
Yep.
Yeah.
I just love that before you even said what fairy tale was, you're like, the one I always think about. I'm like, is it Cinderella? Is it the shoes filling with blood?
Yeah, filling with blood.
But-
I cut my foot earlier, and now my shoe's filling with blood.
Is there a lot of stuff with feet? Because that was with the original. I refreshed
Yeah.
my own memory about the Hans Christian Andersen story, and
walking on
Glass.
knives.
well,
Yeah.
it was that. Well, she would be turned into a human. It would feel like a sword was going through her, and she would be able to dance. And she would lose her voice, but she could dance more beautifully. But every time she took a step, it would feel like she was. I'm like, what's it with the
These
feet?
Snow White had something pretty brutal at the end of it too. I forget what happens. I think it might happen to the evil queen or something. It's in the Shelley Duvall one.
I mean, Snow White on its face is already pretty
pretty
dark.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like there's some weird dark stuff going on in Sleeping Beauty too. So yeah, there's things
Yeah.
that Disney always just kind of works around it. They're like, we'll leave that part out.
Little Mermaid's like very. It's funny like seeing which stuff like the age of 16. There were sisters, which is like a weird little nod. There is a wedding ship in the
A wedding ship, yeah.
It's like there's
so
like
weird.
the weird little details are like no, but we got to have a wedding
Yeah.
ship.
We got this ship.
But doesn't like at the end, like there's not a happy ending at the end of
So that's what I thought too.
Doesn't
I
she
thought
turn into sea bubbles?
Sea foam.
At the end of it?
Okay, let's into the beginning of the Cliff Notes because I just read this all like last night. So Land of Mermaids, when they turn 16, they are allowed to go up to the surface one day a year, and she's
Like
the
the
youngest
Amish.
of. Yes, exactly. It's a mermaid rumspringa. It's a merspringa.
Love it.
They're on their mermaid walkabout.
Exactly. But they can just go to the surface to see it. She sees all her older sisters go up and hears about the stories, and they only go up like one. They each go up one at a time every 365 days.
Okay.
She has always been so fascinated because she's heard the stories from her older sisters, and it's finally her turn. And similar to the movie, she sees this prince on a ship. She falls in love with him. She saves him and brings him to like a temple. And so same thing. He sees like a blurry idea of a woman who's beautiful and who saves him his life. So the bubbles aspect of it. So mermaids can live for 300 years. They live up to 300 years, but when they die, they turn into sea foam and they cease to exist. Like there's no. Whereas humans live a lot.
There's
shorter.
no mermaid the body found.
No, it's foam, and they don't, and like
mermaid
their
heaven.
spirit doesn't exist. Yeah, exactly. And there's no mermaid. But humans, they live much shorter, but their soul lives on eternally in heaven.
Okay.
So she goes to the sea witch, who I think is just called the sea witch, and I believe she's just called the Little Mermaid. Like
Right.
there's no name.
They made it. Yeah.
This movie does not. The book does not pass the.
She's played by Karen Black in Shelley Duvall's Fairy Tale Theater.
The witch.
The Witch.
Yes.
Yep.
And she says that you can become a human. Same thing, but you have to kiss this to be true love. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it says he has to agree to marry you. It might have even been that specifically. So, blah, yada yada yada. I forget the exact specifics, but you guys know the general
we get
gist
it.
of
Yeah.
the story. But then he ends up falling for a. He's never actually interested in her. Like he kind of is just always like, oh, she's there and it's nice, and they spend some time together.
He immediately friend zones her.
That's again from the very in depth Wikipedia article I read. That's basically what it sounded like. So he falls in love with this woman who works at the temple, believing that she's one of the people that the woman that saved him. So she's heartbroken. So she's now going, okay, I'm going to turn into sea foam immediately because that was my curse if I can't get him to marry me. And the sea witch comes back up and says, "You can still go back to being a mermaid, but you have to you have to kill him, and then you have to
my God.
drip his
Okay, I remember that.
drip his
Sure.
blood on your feet."
Yep.
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, this whole time
I
she's
remember
and this
that
whole time
from the
she's
Fairy Tale
also-
Theater one.
Oh
Yep.
yeah, and the whole time she's become his favorite performer or member of the court because she dances for him, and she says she dances for him upon request, even though it feels like knives. So when they go, you stab her, and she's like, "But I love him, and I can't do it." Her sisters come up to the surface and got a dagger from the sea, which that they got in exchange for cutting off all their hair. So you see this this illustration from the book, and it's like all these mermaids with like these really like blunt page boy guns. Like a really
You're one beauty.
Edith from The Impossibles, the fashion designer, the tiny.
Oh, The Incredibles.
Impossibles, Jesus Christ!
Like an Anna Wintour Bob.
Yes,
Yeah.
but more like ragged at the end.
Oh my god.
And anyways, but it's just like 5 of these mermaids. They all have the exact same haircut.
Yeah.
And she can't bring herself to do it, so she stabs herself, and she to kill him because and she just can't take his life. She stabs herself. She dies, which is that's what I thought, that she just killed herself because she was heartbroken. But no, she ends up becoming.
Oh,
She
yeah.
ends up becoming some sort of like spirit where like she becomes like a sea angel kind of.
Can you hear at night like singing?
I mean, maybe, I don't know. They didn't go into that. But basically, if she but she has the opportunity to, if she spends 300 years, basically like how long she would live as a mermaid, doing like continue to be good to others and treating other and putting goodness into the world, she will be able to rise and have a human spirit and rise to human heaven. And they gave her this option because of her selflessness of stabbing herself rather than taking a human life.
So now that I've heard, and all this is coming back to me, that I remember the fairy tale theater of this, so that's all coming back to me. But it really kind of puts into perspective of when you're doing a Disney animated movie, sometimes you do just have to simplify it.
Exactly.
And just sort of like, what are the bare bones of the story, and what are we trying to accomplish? And I think that The Little Mermaid, the Disney movie, has a really good grasp of, this is what we need to do, this is what we're going to cut, and this is where we're going to go with the material.
And not just the darkness, but just like that's what's focus on the main theme at hand, which is, and I mean, truthfully, like it's an entirely different story. What's driving her is very if you go into all the subtle undertones of like being gay in the 1980s with it's really an entirely different story. It just hits certain beats.
Yeah.
It's almost like here, this is an inspiration, and then just go off and do your thing.
Yeah.
It handles tone really well, especially with the character of Ursula, that Ursula's dark, but it's not too dark. That it is able to have fun with it, too.
Well, it's like they hint at the darkness, like, because she puts on this fun energy. She's like the only powerful
she puts
female
on this fun facade for Ariel.
But you see little hints of it with those little like ghouls, which we learn are like basically mermaid souls that just live in her garden. So it's a lot of like razzle dazzle and don't look at the darkness underneath, which is fun, but also like gives it extra sinister layer to a different.
Yes. And is it deleted scenes from this movie, or is it those weird direct-to-video sequels?
No,
where
I think it's deleted scenes of this movie, that there were lines cut that do link Ursula and Triton, that they are siblings, and that Ursula grew up in the palace.
Yeah, because they hint at it in the movie and say, when I lived in the palace, but they don't go into any more specifics. But you're saying that it was they were siblings and she was shunned.
I think that it was there in original cut, and they just took out the lines.
I don't need to have her own. I don't need her to have her own like Cruella, Maleficent. Like, I'm good.
Yeah,
but I would love to have a little short.
I mean,
or a graphic
when you think
novel
about it, Ursula is not like a skinny mermaid. She is part octopus. She's kind of a bigger gal, so she just probably always felt separate from all of the mermaids growing up, and that's kind of her otherness.
Interesting, maybe. Or maybe she's
got that cool flat top.
Or
I love her hair. I think it's super fierce.
It also, she does have her own like little fun hairography. But yeah, even if you look at Poor Unfortunate Souls, even that's like, it's like getting ready for, like, she's putting on makeup. Like, it's a very, it's. I didn't realize this.
It's her drag number.
It is a drag number, but but I like drag. It's ultra feminine. I didn't appreciate that as a child, but I do as an adult.
She's got some curves.
She's got some body language.
I mean,
she's
I would tip her
lipstick with the guts of some weird.
I would tip this bitch.
You give her $1.
I'd give her $1. I'd give her $2. I'd give her $5.
Oh, and there is one more thing. We haven't discussed the subject of payment. You can't get something for nothing, you know.
But I don't have
I'm not asking much. Just a token, really, a trifle. You'll never even miss it. What I want from you is your voice.
my voice.
You've got it, sweet cakes. No more talking, singing.
I give her 5.
Zip.
So fun.
I think it's kind of funny of the contract of that. Like now, I'm just thinking of like, well, you know what? Drag Race contracts are just as vigorous
For
of
eternity.
That, like for eternity. Do you really want to do that? We are giving you a front of the line pass in this community,
Ironclad, bitch.
and Ariel like signs that dotted line.
Yeah,
Yep.
she absolutely does.
Well, she's like, what's left for me here? Well, again, if you're going into the, like, this, you know, if you're doing, like, parallels between, like, growing up gay and misunderstood, it's like, how many stories have we heard of, like, a young gay kid who has, like, it was all or, they got the sense from their family that it was all or nothing. They got, and so they just went, you know what, well, I have to run away. That's,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting as a kid. You're just like, yeah, she's 16. She knows what she wants.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh man,
16-year-olds.
16, you're a child.
And I think that's what I thought similar, like your sister, like when I was older watching it, you know, I was in my when I was my teens or my 20s, I'm just like, oh my God, this kid's an idiot. Why does she think she knows what she wants?
She knows nothing.
I mean, it was ye olden days that you were pretty much an adult when you were 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
You got to get yourself married before those teeth start falling out.
I mean, she ends up in a wedding dress at the end of this movie. So
I hate that wedding dress.
I always never.
That was my other memory. You said like, what did you remember like as a kid watching this? I remember loving that sparkly dress, and at the end, I was like, oh, why didn't she just stay in that other dress? This giant sleeves are hideous.
I always don't like in the Ariel meet and greets. I get that for logistics that you can't have Ariel in the mermaid costume, but I never liked it was the pink dress.
Oh, okay. It should be the blue. It should be the blue with the black bodice that she's like running around town.
Meet and greets where she's like they have her perched on a rock.
Okay, so here I have a question. Prince Eric's palace. It's like on the seashore. It's very Mediterranean looking.
Yeah.
Great ocean views.
He probably lives down the beach from like Meryl Streep and Mamma Mia.
I was gonna say, is he Greek? Is he Italian? Is
I
it
think
the
it's
Black
Italian.
Sea?
But then there's some like Caribbean flavor in there, so I don't know.
I know he's got those eyebrows like that's
It's like
some
a
Eastern European.
it's like a melting pot.
It's Mediterranean. Mediterranean, let's just say. Because, all the architecture, there's like shingles on the rooftops and all of that. I'm like, where's Eric's palace? What is he the prince of?
I have never tried to figure out where these palaces are in any of these Disney movies because I don't think I'll ever come up with an answer. It just makes my head hurt. So I just choose to believe that it exists and not in a world that I know.
Yeah, because, I mean, Hans Christian Andersen is out of Denmark.
Yeah, he's Danish.
I mean, I don't know.
Was Hans Christian Andersen gay? I think he was.
Oh, I don't know. Danny Kaye was.
That's what I'm thinking. I was like, why am I picturing a redhead head? I was like, oh, because I'm picturing Danny
Hold on, let me do a Google search.
Danny Kaye was. We watched that in 7th grade, I think.
We went to Solvang last year, just like on a
yes.
no, I'm sorry, not last year. Like when the world wasn't terrible.
Yeah.
Just like on a whim, and Billy had never been. And we went to like the Hans Christian Andersen like museum bookstore, and they have a little thing. It's like Little Mermaid. It's like it's a little thing, and they've got a few like old like manuscripts of it, and then like a very like sun faded Little Mermaid Disney poster. Which speaking of the poster, we have to talk about
we
talked
about that dick.
We talked about it when I won on Keep It Weird a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. My clamshell did not have that. That I would have been even.
My
more
clamshell did.
What is the consensus then that you came up with for listeners of this show who didn't listen to you?
I think that we talked about how the artist made a statement that did that VHS box set that has a tower that looks like a giant dick that the artist said, "I did not mean to do it."
Well, what's he going to say? Oh yeah, that
Like,
was on purpose.
It was just
That was
it
all
just
me,
sort
baby.
of happened. So I don't know. It was probably a mistake, but when you look at the castle, it is very phallic.
And then when you look at Rescuers Down Under with those tits that were in the window, I just assumed this was a thing that animators just always did.
They just
but
figured, it's
things
just
can
one
become
shot.
phallic very easily. I remember taking a design class in college, and there was something where you're like, oh, you have to do certain shapes, and a lot of people, when they were getting assessed by the teacher, or like the class would assess it, and there was a lot of, oh, this looks like swastika. And she's like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, so it's really hard. If you're trying to have a very eye-catching visual shape that's going to go into like geometry, you're like, you might run into some swastika territory. The Nazis had a great graphic designer. It's very eye-catching. It's like
iconic. It's easy to
but like,
identify.
It's a very eye-catching shape,
Yeah,
and there's a
yeah.
reason why it.
Oh my gosh.
So,
my gosh.
update on Hans Christian Andersen, if he was gay. I guess it is very much in debate of that he possibly was a closeted homosexual.
What was because of the themes of like wanting to be part of a different world, or
I mean, I think that there's a lot written on like some of
everyone
journal records of his same-sex attraction. Also, Hans Christian Andersen died in 1875.
I was going to say, when was this?
That is a long time ago.
but what's just like as nothing. He wasn't gay, but like anyone who did anything remotely artistic in the 1800s was
Right.
like queer.
Burn him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So up for debate if Hans Christian Andersen was gay. He probably was. He wrote a
you heard it here.
yeah.
Well, yeah, and that was out of Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
So I still am holding fast to Prince Eric's palace being somewhere in the Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what the time frame is of this movie in particular, but it's all just kind of like a fairy tale world.
It exists in its own fairy tale land.
Yeah,
Don't think too hard about it.
absolutely, because he doesn't have parents. King and queen of like his palace or nowhere.
I mean, I think it was just two more characters that they didn't
want
have
draw.
to animate.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's probably
No one
what
has,
the reasoning
no one has
was.
parents in Disney movies.
Yeah.
We've established
because
this.
it's like, is he very? How young is he? Is he a teenager as well?
He's probably also like 20,
Yeah.
like maybe.
There you
I
go.
did catch that when he's like, what do you say? Would you like to have a tour of my kingdom? And I went, oh, that's a flex. Not, do you want to have a tour of the kingdom? It's like, we already know you're
My
a prince.
Kingdom.
You want
Yeah.
to visit my kingdom? Okay.
Speaking of deceased parents, we did talk a little bit about the shipwreck from the opening of the movie that Ariel and Flounder scavenge.
Are we talking about the internet fan theories of that ship
That
and,
it's Anna
and
and
whose it
Elsa's
was?
that it's Anna and Elsa's parents.
And what's the theory of that exactly?
So
The ship goes down in the movie.
Anna and Elsa's parents are
That's
on
it.
the way to Mandy Moore's wedding from Tangled,
Yeah.
and the ship goes down.
Well, I know that they're connected because isn't Mandy Moore's character, isn't Rapunzel...
They show up.
They show up at the end. It's like a little
Yeah.
Easter egg.
Yeah.
But the theory that is there any other like visual cues that like make
No.
people think that that's the ship? It's just like,
No.
hey, wouldn't it be cool if also this?
because their ships crashed and that's
Is
it.
there are there no other movies that have reference to a ship crash?
Well,
in
the,
Disney?
the visual cue is that Tarzan's parents look like Anna and Elsa's parents.
Oh, I
Sure.
do remember seeing that.
Tarzan's
yes.
father in the portrait kind of looks like he could.
And
be.
they have Tarzan in Africa. Because, I mean, also this theory is debunked because Tarzan's parents, their ship would have gone down off the coast of Africa.
Yeah. So there's no So it's all a mess.
This is a bullshit fan theory that I'm already seeing holes in.
The internet is fun, guys.
Doesn't hold water.
Hold water. Was that a
Yeah. Hey. Anna and Elsa's parents are at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, they did.
They.
I think I'm casually
Go watch it.
optimistic about this new movie coming out.
I am, except
I do think that the casting of Melissa McCarthy is a little lazy.
it's very lazy.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
it's like okay, we need to have someone who's fun and a big lady. Melissa McCarthy, and like that can't be your answer for everything.
everything.
Guys.
And I
Yeah.
also,
So annoying.
I'm not really having the character of Ursula just sort of being underarm pitched of, oh, she's really just super misunderstood and she's really not that bad.
Is that what we've heard? I've heard very little
I'm
about
assuming that they're going to go in that direction with it.
I mean, I'm all for villains being three-dimensional. You don't need to necessarily, like... I think there's a difference when it's, like, make them three-dimensional, but maybe you don't have to be like, but everyone's human and flawed and they made this... That's when you start overcorrecting. It's like, well, some people are villains because they're fun to be villains. Mm-hmm. But yes, Melissa McCarthy, I have nothing against Melissa McCarthy personally. It just seems like this is such a fun character. You can do so much with it. And who knows? I would love to be proven wrong, but...
Yeah, same.
But I couldn't. You put the words when you were talking about this earlier. You said it feels lazy, and I was like, yes, that's exactly that. I couldn't think of the right word for it, and that's exactly what it is. Which again, like, I shouldn't be surprised. It's Disney. They're going to go with. They already were taking a risky choice, or like doing something different by like having it be a completely different race, and so they have to be like, we have to have something else that's just that's just like. That's a safe bet.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, I just felt like we need to bring it up because, you know.
Do there a release date?
I don't think there's a release date for it. Yeah. I don't know if they're going to put it. I don't know if they're going to put it early 2022, like in March, or if they're going to wait for the summer. I don't know.
Yeah, so they haven't even announced the
Awkwafina's going to be Scuttle. I'm all about that.
That's all. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. That's what. That might be fun.
I didn't realize until I was much older that Scuttle was Buddy Hackett.
I love Buddy Hackett's little voice.
And you know what's so funny too is like growing up, I loved two of the first like musical, like standard musical movies I ever saw were three: My Fair Lady, Damn Yankees, and Music Man. And I'd watched Music Man many times.
Is he Music Man?
Yeah, she did Shapoopy, the most nonsensical musical number that's ever existed in the history of mankind.
I've only seen the Music Man on stage. I'm not super familiar with
that.
Oh,
you should Shapoopy from Family Guy.
Oh yeah, and that was bad. Yeah, I did appreciate that. I was like, oh yeah, this guy is a giant musical theater nerd. But yeah, I was like, how did I not recognize that? You should watch it just for Robert Preston. He's like, he's the perfect Howard Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, Buddy Hackett's great though. He's really funny in this.
That little Buddy Hackett voice.
they even like make his face look like him. They do, just really fun stuff that they can do. And
they use him the perfect amount too. The little goofy kid like that doesn't know what he's talking about. And honestly, I was watching where he's like, okay, I tried to think of some sort of joke of like, here's another example of someone mansplaining something they don't know anything about, but saying with the utmost authority. But I was like, you know what? And I'm like, yes, you can make that joke, but I didn't. But then I was like, but he's really lovable. He's never like arrogant about it. Yeah. He could also have been overused and have been like the goofy character that you maybe have too much. Which, like, I mean, as good as Frozen is, like, I could probably do with like 10 minutes less Olaf if I'm being completely honest. Yeah. But they use him exactly the right amount.
Yeah, for sure.
When I was a kid, I used to love Sebastian as sort of the straight man.
Mm-hmm.
To just sort of all the craziness that was going on.
Yeah. Another trope that they've done, I actually had several examples in my head, and then I blanked on them. But the one that comes to mind right now is Lion King with Zazu, a straight-laced, almost more so than the royal that they answer to themselves.
Right? Yeah.
Straight-laced person who's just trying to keep keep shit together. Like Zazu is like almost exactly a direct connection to Sebastian.
Yeah, totally. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. What else have we not gotten to yet?
Well, we haven't really talked about the music a lot other than Part of Your World. Didn't Under the Sea win
It won the Oscar.
Won the Oscar.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I don't think I think I realized older than I was proud to admit that like Sebastian was clearly supposed to be like a black character.
Yeah. Right.
And then I realized that like in my mid-20s and felt kind of dumb that it took me that long.
And even sort of the voiceover actor, I'm blinking on his name, he just passed away like
Yes. Was it
Mm-hmm.
the voiceover and singer was the same guy, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And even just the characteristics of that actor, they put a lot into the animation of Sebastian too.
Yes. Well, I mean, and on that same note, Jodie Benson, if you look at young photos of even that hair that undecipherable hair swoop is very like she looks exact like that was when they used him for a full like for everything as a model.
This is Samuel E. Wright. Samuel E. Wright passed away in May.
There was like one or
yeah.
two other things that he like had been in that I went, oh, that was the same guy, and I'm blanking on him.
Well, if we want to talk about visual reference for Ariel, we have to talk about our friend Alyssa.
We got to talk about Alyssa. Yeah. So Alyssa Milano was supposedly, I mean, she's even said it, too. I remember she said on Runway that she was used as one of the references for Ariel.
Really?
The animators kind of used her.
Because, I mean, haven't you ever heard that?
physicality.
Was she already like a well-known child actor?
I mean,
at that
she
point?
was on Who's the Boss.
Who's the Boss started in like 84.
Yep.
I'd say that Who's the Boss was never a
Yeah.
cultural. Like I just missed it. So
Yeah.
And
Yeah, she was already.
I love
huge,
sort
but,
of finding out stars that were used as reference. I'd always heard when I was young Jennifer Connelly as Jasmine
and Tom
and
Cruise,
Tom
as
Cruise as
Aladdin.
Aladdin. Yep.
Yeah.
I had never heard of either of
Yeah.
those.
Just visually, they had their pictures up around their stations as they would draw.
Oh, so it wasn't like I came in and stood and did a model. It was more like it was something you heard after the fact.
No, I mean they actually did. Yeah. So like Jennifer Connelly and Tom Cruise had no idea that the
This
animators
is like,
were
did they
using
get
it.
money? Did they get a check?
No,
for this?
not at all.
But
No.
Alyssa Milano maybe did.
No, she didn't actually go in for reference either, but she was kind of one of the biggest teen stars at the time.
Yeah,
And
it makes total sense.
Yeah, so they used her kind of her face and her body a little bit for visual reference.
Yeah. More to like, I guess going back to the music to like Kiss the Girl is still like that whole scene that they set. I was like, it felt romantic to me as an adult. Honestly, I think that might almost be a better song than Under the Sea.
I think that my favorite song is still Part of Your World.
Well, Part of Your World is like
It's everyone's favorite song.
Well, it's just it sets the stage. There's a hope. There's a emotion in it. It's like, and to again, but yeah, going back to what you said about figure reference, you're right. The scuttle really does kind of look like Buddy Hackett a little. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this was a time too when I feel like Disney kind of ebbs and flows with having the voice actor and do the singing as well. 'Cause they didn't always do that.
I think that for Paige O'Hara, she did the voice for Belle, but then for the voice of Jasmine, they used Crown Jewel of the Philippines. What's her name?
Lea Salonga. She did the singing voice for Jasmine. She also did the singing voice for Mulan.
That's right. I'm like, she did one. For
If you ever meet any Filipino people, like she should just be on like on the Filipino flag.
She was
like $100 bill.
She was in an episode, in like a season finale of an episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, which talked, even though like the main character was white, they talked a lot about the
boyfriend's Filipino.
The object of affection is a Filipino, and they talk about like his Filipino family all the time. And so like a guest star was his aunt who was coming to his sister's wedding, and she'd been in like Star Search once, and so she had a big head. And so she's like, well, I'm going to give the gift of my voice, and was like, oh, okay.
But it's Lea Salonga.
It's Lea Salonga, yeah.
Oh, I love that. That woman had how many Tonys does she have?
Yeah, she has. I mean,
and also looks amazing.
Also, like
great, yeah.
MVP of like Les Mis, that she's played both major roles of that on stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
she's played both Fatime and
Fantine and Cosette.
And Cosette, yeah.
So I know we haven't really gone through like the plot of the movie because everyone knows it and there's a lot of other stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But something I thought about watching this, when they almost kiss and Ursula goes, oh shit, like that was close. I got to get in here and do some stuff.
Yeah.
She can hit. It's not that she just like got him because she had the voice and he's like, it's you. She hypnotized him, which begs the question, why did you not just do that like her first day in, so she's never got a chance? Like, why, unless you're just like, I just want to fuck around and see what happens.
Yeah, she let it go for the
like,
full like
if
2.5 days.
This was always like an arrow in your quiver. Why were you not doing that? Like she showed up and then the day later someone's like shows up.
Yeah, there's Vanessa.
Which we just learned was the same speaking voice.
Yeah,
was also
Jodie.
Jodie Benson.
Jodie Benson,
which
yeah.
props, because the speaking voice sounds very different.
Well, also too, I mean, it makes sense that it would be Jodie Benson because it's Ariel's voice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So it
in the
makes
little
sense.
shell.
But I love that she's like, I'm still going to make this its own. It's not going to sound like Ariel. It's going to sound a little.
Yeah.
I love the scene of Vanessa when Scuttle is looking through the ship, and I love her little moment of like, you're getting the villain's reveal through song.
things are working out according to my ultimate design. Soon I'll have that little mermaid and the ocean will be
The sea witch. Oh, no.
Reveal through song. I think Vanessa is so fucking fierce in that scene.
Oh yeah, she's.
I think
Oh
she is like selling this. She is like selling like
Little
sex in this
Mermaid.
mirror, looking at this mirror, and then like throws
She
something at
steps on a
the
thing and
cherub
breaks it.
like on the mirror.
Yeah, she like
Stepping on the little like
Ocean
perfume
will
bottles.
Be mine.
Yeah.
Yes. And then, but if you could see her through the reflection, you that was also the thought. I was like, were you just gonna? I don't think her long game is to marry. Like she just all she's
Right,
doing
no,
is just
she-
this.
yeah.
But
She's
I'm
not
like,
gonna live
you just have to
happily
just
ever
avoid
afterwards.
all reflective surfaces.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I love that her little song part. It's a reprise of "Poor
Yeah.
Unfortunate Souls."
there's a lot of
Great.
reprises in this.
Yeah.
There's like when as we were counting how many actual songs, like songs there are, and they're like 5.
The trailer said 7 new songs, and I was like,
Did it?
7
Are
new
there?
Wait,
songs.
okay, on my count. Fathoms Below, Part of Your World. Fuck.
Under the Sea.
Oh, wait, no, I am sorry. Fathoms Below, and then there's that song where the sisters introduce
Does
Ariel.
that count as a whole song?
Well, I don't know. Let's count. Let's count it and see if it matches, if that's what Disney
I think you
is
have
doing.
to count it.
Yeah.
It
If
is.
we're going to count
But
7.
no one's thinking.
The
no one's like,
daughters-
you know what
okay.
song I love? The sisters.
Daughters of Triton.
Daughters of Triton. Part of Your World. Under the Sea. Poor Unfortunate Souls.
Kiss the Girl.
Oh no, I guess maybe do you count the voice catching the
I don't know.
And then-
Ariel's Lament.
Yeah, I don't know.
and then so that's 7. What else? What would the other one be?
After that, yeah, I don't know what else there is. It has to be. Daughters of Triton has to be included in the 7
And
new
so
original
does
songs.
the voice catching song.
Ariel's Lament.
5 songs and 2 minis.
Yeah. Interesting. Unless they wrote that trailer, produced that trailer like
And the
before
whole movie
something was cut.
hadn't quite been cut together.
Yeah. So, but I mean, hey. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like this is a musical, but there's not like it's not like wall to wall songs. You know?
Well, see, if you look at a lot of Broadway musicals, you look at the track listing, like
Yeah.
every other. I mean, Hamilton, like every other song's a fucking reprise on that.
Yeah.
Like in terms of songs that have an entirely
True.
unique melody,
Yeah.
there's not many more than 7, I don't think.
yeah. True. Because
Speaking of songs that since you're here, and I know that you're a big Simpsons fan, but I sent you a YouTube video
It
that
made me so happy.
whenever I think of Under the Sea, I just think of that episode of The Simpsons, Homer Badman.
Because Homer's answered everything is what if we just lived
Live
under the sea?
Under the sea, under the sea. There'll be no accusations, just friendly crustaceans under the sea.
Homer, that's your solution to everything. To move under the sea. It's not gonna
If we just
happen.
lived
Under
under
the sea. It's not going to happen.
You should plug if you would plug it in.
Oh no, I don't have it.
Oh,
We'll edit it.
We'll
put
cut it
it in. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh no, and then that made me so happy.
Really good song.
And it's really like we were talking about it. They did barely even try. Like sometimes they'll do this exact song, but they do it in a different key. I think they even do it in a different key for only half of it. It's
Like-
just a straight rip
They're
of
just
Under the Sea.
rearranging the notes. Like that's all. I mean, that's all music
There'll
is
be
anyway.
no accusations, just friendly crustaceans under the sea.
So when I was a little kid, I got an Ariel doll for Christmas.
The one with the legs.
And
under
I
the-
lost my damn mind over it. That you had the little like fin, like her
the
mermaid
fin skirt
her
that
Yeah,
went
it was
over
like
the
a
legs.
little
Yeah.
skin
fabric, like fabric skirt
Yeah.
that went over
Yeah.
her legs to give her a tail.
She had her little like her little bra, her like seashell bra.
I think I brought mine in the tub with me.
I was gonna say you had to put it underwater.
And my favorite
To get
part of
that
that
hair.
doll were her bangs, and they were bangs on the doll.
Okay, I'm sure they were. That sounds familiar. That is not fucking bangs. There's no edges to it. This is gonna listeners. I'm glad that you've enjoyed my previous visits to this podcast, but this is going to be the line in the sand between me and Scott, and our friendship is going to end here. Apparently.
Do you remember I wasn't super into baby dolls as a kid because I just didn't have the patience for just like baby dolls that I wanted like a beautiful fashion doll.
Oh, like one that like you have to like I'm the mommy and take care of it.
Do you remember sort of like the baby doll version of Ariel? Well, I guess that it was Ariel. So it was like it was like a doll version of Ariel, but it was the one it was just larger.
No,
do you remember the commercials for it?
I don't.
No, you know what I remember, and I don't know if this was Ariel or Disney. Do you remember there was a version of some Disney princess where it was like kind of like the My Buddy, where it was like almost life size for a kid.
No,
but did they have one for Ariel?
They had one for Ariel.
Okay, because but that wasn't a baby doll. That was like it was roughly the height of a 5-year-old child.
No, yeah, she means the ones that are like.
Sure,
your size, like my size doll.
Like you could
my size Barbie.
You could brush their hair.
I think they were called my size. Yeah.
The Barbie ones are called my size Barbie. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I lost her seashell bra, and so she was just like tits out the entire time. But I'm the same thing. I didn't have a lot of baby dolls. I was more into the Barbie.
Oh yeah,
a fashion doll.
Like I said,
fashion
doll.
Yeah.
And then I had a bunch of stuffed animals, but
yeah.
But
was there an Eric doll? Like an Eric Ken?
Yes.
I'm sure that there was, but I did have the Prince Adam doll from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh. I thought this isn't a Beauty and the Beast podcast, but I remember thinking his lips were like, I remember when I've not seen like those really sharp features.
Oh, I
mean, clearly you've seen the man I've spent my last life with. I like the Beast.
I mean, he pretty much just turns into Fabio at the end of that movie.
Yes, thank you. And that's not my jam.
It's a major point of contention with people.
Is it really?
Is he hot in human form? Yeah, huge.
Oh, that makes me feel so much better.
Yeah.
I feel so seen
you're
right
not
now.
Alone. Yeah.
Well, I mean, have you ever seen the 50s or like the 1940s Beauty and the Beast, the Cocteau one?
No, I do remember my grandma watched Beauty and the Beast soap opera.
When he does like turn back into a human at the end of that movie, the actress that plays Belle or Beauty does look at him like, I kind of liked you better as the Beast. Mm-hmm.
But was he actually hot? Like I just thought that his features were just.
Oh no, he's handsome, but she just prefers him in his animal form.
I mean, they kind of touched. I thought her performance was very dull, but the Beauty and the Beast live action, I actually genuinely really liked, and I really liked the guy who played Beast, and they kind of touched on that a little bit at the end of that movie too.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about from Gosford Park, not Luke Evans. Dan Stevens. I was working at Barnes & Noble one day, and Dan Stevens came in. He was very handsome.
Is Luke Evans the one who played Gaston? Because that was also very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of villain songs that are a blast, fucking Gaston.
I mean, yeah, it's great. It's great. But like we said, Little Mermaid kind of laid this groundwork. They laid the tracks for how many, they call it like Disney animation, like Renaissance, like Second Golden Age.
Like the big golden period was Little Mermaid, Aladdin.
Beauty and the Beast was before Aladdin.
Beauty and the Beast. And then The Lion King. I think it kind of like the true golden age sort of stops there. Mm-hmm. I've never really cared for Pocahontas.
He's not a big Mulan person either.
I think Mulan's fine.
He thinks Mulan is fine.
I like Mulan.
I love Mulan.
I like Mulan better than Pocahontas. I think I remember liking Pocahontas more, and then I watched as an adult, and I was like, I'm really kind of bored.
Pocahontas has weird story.
And then I got mad because I was like, man, Native American representation deserved a lot better than this boring ass movie.
Yep.
Hunchback's also kind of tonally weird.
Hunchback has a weird tonal problem.
It's a weird movie to have done. I feel like I even thought that as a kid.
Yeah.
And I was like, and even as an adult, I'm like, no, I still think this is a really weird choice.
Yeah. As a kid, you're like, I've never read that giant book, but I know it can't end good.
And then there's like that weird sexual, like there's like sexual religious undertones
with Frollo. So on.
Hercules. I like Hercules, but I feel like Hercules also has a very like pop culture reference.
There's a lot. There's like a generation of people that are. I think they're maybe just like 2 or 3 years younger than us. Like who all about Hercules and Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, I love Emperor's New Groove.
And I've seen them but that was like a very touchstone thing. You know, one of my favorite Disney movies that have come out in the last few years is Princess and the Frog.
Sure.
That movie's great. One of the top, I'd say in my top 3 favorite Disney villain songs. That song is a
good
fucking bop.
Are you excited for
Are
you excited for the new Splash Mountain ride? That's going to be.
Oh, that's right. It's going to be.
They're going to make it.
It's going to be
Princess and the Frog theme.
Yeah, I think
it'll be cool.
Princess Tivana.
I'm going to be interested to see how they try to make that look like Louisiana.
So, my big problem with I think that Princess and the Frog is a good movie, but it's kind of like what I think about Tangled is that I think those two movies are very front loaded, but I feel like my patience sort of starts to wear with them in the last act.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I don't know if, the story is as interesting as, the songs and the performance of it. I love the art style of Princess Frog, but yes, that's fair. It's a lot of them just going to being frogs.
Kind of
arguing.
Finishing up this episode, what is your favorite of the Disney classics, like the older movies?
Oh, shit. I mean, Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast are kind of...
We're talking,
You're earlier?
Earlier.
From Out of the Vault.
I don't know. I mean, but those were in the vault.
Yeah,
I mean, go way deep in the vault, way back.
So we're talking like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty,
Snow White.
Snow White. Oh, they're all kind of. I don't pass. Little Mermaid. I think they're all kind of boring. I think. I mean, it's a lot of expressionless white blonde women. I don't there's not a lot of expression. I feel like, again, I also not Scott's giving me the dirtiest look right now. I'm staring fully at Pete right now.
Know your words and do your research.
We just did a revisit of Peter Pan and Bambi. Peter Pan, kind of that character is pretty. It kind of drives me crazy now that he's pretty toxic, and I get that you are not thinking of when that movie came out in the 50s. But a movie that kind of drives me nuts now that I used to love. But our revisit of Bambi. Bambi is a fucking work of art.
Yeah.
I can imagine that. I think, again, I was a theater kid. My dad, raised me in, music. Again, I was 5, and I was I really love Damn Yankees. So I think that Disney classics, to me, always are the ones that had the musical numbers. So that's why, those other ones, they're beautiful, but they feel very... They feel boring to me in comparison to what I think of as a true Disney classic.
Sure. Well, we're going to be doing my favorite Disney movie next week on the show. We're going to be talking about Sleeping Beauty.
I like the dress changes, the skirts. I'm trying to. I'm how can I redeem myself in Scott's eyes?
Scott Maleficent, get out of here. Sleeping Beauty's great. Cinderella spends way too much time.
There's a lot of mice in Cinderella that I always forget about.
I like them. I like that chubby mouse.
Gus
is
He's
okay.
Great.
See,
He's great.
there's things I haven't seen them in a while.
Yeah,
but give me a musical number. That's. I'm so sorry, Scott.
No, it's okay.
I feel like I really like Sleeping Beauty. I like Alice in Wonderland a lot. I can watch that anytime. I like Jungle Book.
Jungle Book has a great. It has one musical number. But it's a good musical number.
I think it has 2 songs in it. Pinocchio I like. Can get scary.
Yeah, that ride is still scary.
I mean, one of the scariest scenes ever committed to film are those little boys turning into donkeys.
It is
on Pleasure Island.
Very. Yeah. It is upsetting.
Absolutely. But I mean, of this new modern era, I mean, Little Mermaid it started.
Yeah, it was a game changer.
Yeah, yeah, and we have it to thank for all the huge musical, animated movies after it. So we love it.
I mean, when you go out to karaoke, there always has to be that one bitch that sings "Part of Your World" at karaoke.
Really? I don't know if I've ever been anyone who's been.
I see more. Aladdin.
Sure.
A Whole New World. It's someone doing
It's a good duet song.
Yeah. It's a very good duet song. I have done Poor Unfortunate Souls at Fiesta Cantina on Santa Monica Boulevard at 11 p.m. on a Wednesday to a smattering of applause. I was very drunk. But one more question I was asked is, did this kickstart the mermaid obsession moment in
I
pop
think
culture,
so,
or
yeah.
was this an answer to that?
I mean, Splash had already existed. Splash had come out a few years prior to this.
But we're a
movie.
bunch of like 7-year-old girls being like Splash.
They
like,
want to be
man.
Madison.
Splash was a Disney movie, but it was a
Was
little
it?
bit more Touchstone.
It was, yeah, it was Touchstone.
I did not know that.
But I think it was a little bit more aimed at, a grown-up audience. I was a kid and I watched it, and I remember my sister and I watching it and loving it.
I loved Madison and Splash.
Yeah.
We need to do Splash on the show.
We definitely
one of these
will.
days.
I'm kind of surprised you haven't, honestly.
Tom
Like
Hanks.
that's so your guys'
Tom Hanks is super
I mean,
cute.
I am also obsessed
Eugene
with
Levy.
Eugene Levy.
I am
oh my
also
God.
obsessed with mermaids. I have a merman tattoo on my arm. His name is Bert.
I have a mermaid tattoo. on
Yeah.
my
Pete
arm,
has
too.
one too.
It's a loteria card.
I do not have a mermaid tattoo. Did you find that once you started watching mermaid movies that it changed how you swam in a pool?
Yes.
Of course.
Obviously.
Did anyone else do the thing? Maybe this was like a very girly thing, but like specifically. But did you either of you do the thing where you dive in and you would kind of like arch your back so like your butt was in the air and then your legs went up?
Yep.
Thing. I always did that. I was always picturing myself as a mermaid when I
Like
did
to dive in, like if you're in the water, you dive down forward,
Yeah.
your butt, and then your legs go in
Yeah,
last.
like I'm sure in my head, I thought it looked like the most elegant thing. I'm sure it looked ridiculous, but in my head, I
Yeah.
felt so feminine, elegant.
How
and
else do you get
magical.
into the water? Yeah, that's it. That's
You will,
it.
or your mermaid, or your Ariel at the end of the movie, and you go, "I got to get to that wedding ship." You dive in, immediately go, "Oh wait,
Yeah,
I can't swim."
Yeah, absolutely. Sinking all the way to the bottom of the pool, swimming upwards, and doing a backflip.
Noticing
before I
how
got
your
to
hair
the-
moved, if you
Or
were that
if
long.
you were at the beach and you were riding the waves in, you just sort of like came out on the sand and pretend like you were a mermaid, like surfacing.
Yeah, we all wanted to be mermaids.
I mean, it still sounds pretty cool.
Yeah,
When
I
I-
think it definitely started with Splash, but this movie just kind of like.
And I
amped
feel
it
like
up.
Hook came out in like 92 or so, and that
Oh.
movie had some great mermaid scenes in it.
Well,
Yeah.
and Peter Pan before that, which was in the 70s.
No, Peter Pan.
Peter
was
Pan
in
was
the
the
50s.
50s.
Oh,
I love how cunty the mermaids are in that
oh
movie.
yeah.
That they're like bitches.
Rude.
Was it,
Yeah.
maybe that was what it was? That maybe this whole thing was just like, hey, mermaids have gotten a bad
They
rap.
will,
we got
and they also want to
mermaids.
drown Wendy in that movie.
Well, the thing is, we haven't talked about like mythology,
Yeah,
and, like
the
mythological
mermaid mythology.
mermaids and sirens and all that. They're not nice.
they're gonna
Their
drag.
origins are not.
Yeah.
are
They're
not
going to
great.
drag sailors
Yeah.
to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
And also, my merman tattoo, he is attached to a sailor that is tied up in a rope.
There was
Yep.
this. I'll send you guys photos of this, so maybe you can post them on your Instagram. We went to like Ventura, like downtown Ventura. So it's like we'd drive along the PCH, and we were walking around the area, and there was this little gift shop, and it was closed, and they had these ornaments, and there was like 25 different ones, and they were all. This is clearly. I feel like these were clearly trying to appeal to a gay audience, or maybe just like a very specific type of woman, but they
Sure.
were all mermen. All hunky, and they were all working different jobs. So there was like a barista merman, a fireman merman, which I'm like, what are the logistics of that?
How? Why?
I have a picture of Billy doing a goofy thumbs up next to one that's clearly like a goth mermaid.
I love it.
Yes, it was like, what in the gay hell? And I will send them to. And I think I took photos and said I gotta send these to Scott, and then I forgot.
I mean,
so
I
I will
have
send them to you.
I'll post a picture of it, but I have a gender swapped Ariel and Eric mug of them making out.
That's awesome.
Ariel is a man with this long red hair, and
I love a ginger.
Eric is like it's like shipwrecked Eric.
I feel like my sister had a My Little Pony that had a mermaid tail.
Oh my god,
That's too much. That's too many things.
I would have lost my damn mind.
It was like a seahorse, but a real horse, but a My Little Pony, but also a mermaid.
When do you go into
Crazy.
into like fantastical things, and when do you go into sins against
Yeah.
nature? And I feel like that is playing jump rope with
I
that line.
kind of loved it. I was obsessed with it because it had the My Little Pony mane, and it had the mermaid tail, so you could take it in the bathtub. It was beautiful.
Wasn't also like
It was also mint green.
aren't there? Hasn't it been confirmed that like what people believe, like sailors believed to be mermaids, were actually just like manatees on rocks, and they were just been at sea,
a manatee or
and they were just
or a
like really
narwhal.
horny and lonely?
Yeah.
Probably, yeah. I
Belugas.
Well, no, because manatees have like mermaid tails.
Mermaid tails, and they can go up on rocks and like rest on the waves. And if a guy hadn't seen a woman in a long enough time, and he'd also like
sea cow,
and he had scurvy.
Maybe more so from under the water. They just saw that like tail from, I don't know.
But I thought the joke was that they also like were just real randy and had like been these were
probably that too.
Been around a lot of men. For
hadn't seen a lady in a long time. They're out at sea. Yeah,
it's a mirage.
Yeah, but the mermaids of legend would like lure sailors with their siren song,
drown them,
kill them. Yeah. So.
And now they're on. Now sirens are on the Starbucks cups.
Yes, indeed.
Because the founder of Starbucks is like a distant relative of Herman Melville.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so dumb.
All right.
Like why not?
I kept wondering in this movie. I think I have it in my notes. Is King does Greek mythology exist in this movie?
Is he
because
Neptune?
King Triton is King Triton is
Neptune,
Poseidon's son, I believe.
Oh,
sure.
Were there mermaids in the Odyssey?
Yes.
Okay.
There are mermaids in the Odyssey.
That long ass fucking book.
Yeah. Circe was not a mermaid, but like, yeah, that long ass book.
I just that and Beowulf. Odyssey I could go through. Beowulf, I think I just tuned out about halfway through. Couldn't.
Yeah. It's better for your mental health. Well, I think it's time.
We better
to
wrap this.
We
better wrap this shit up.
Yes. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much for coming back. We finally got to the Little Mermaid. I'm glad. I love this movie.
I mean, I texted you. I said like I just love it. I haven't really thought about why I love it. I'm like, am I going to have anything to talk about? Obviously, I always have something to talk about. but yeah, no, this was exciting. It was also nice seeing it like with fresh eyes, like thinking about like sort of the undercurrent themes that were in it too. It gave me a new appreciation of it and what it started.
Yeah, totally. Well, this was tons of fun as always, and we would love to have you back again in the future, of course. So we'll already start thinking about that. But and thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much. Join us next week, and we will be doing Sleeping Beauty as our second Disney movie.
Yes, indeed.
Our back-to-back Disney movie.
Two Disney movies in a row. But it is that time. Time for some Patreon shout-outs. We would love to say thank you to... we have a brand new patron. We have a couple of new patrons, but we have like a brand new one. Nicole, thank you so much for being a friend. You are our newest patron.
Thanks so much, Nicole.
Along with Susan and Barry. You guys are brand new. As well as JJ, Brandon, Leighton, Shelby, Merle, Michael, Charlie, Heather, Paul, Jamie, Drew, Jimmy, Genevieve, Dawn, Josh, Emily, Millie, Aaron, Melinda, Jim, Jessica, Nick, and Shannon, Christine, and Rufino. Thank you guys so much. Listeners, head over to patreon.com/moviesthatmadeusgay to check out our awesome exclusive tiers on Patreon. We're just finishing up another round of postcards, so those should be in the mail
They're about to go out
soon. So check your mailbox for that. And you can also get some additional commentary tracks where you can watch a movie with Scott and myself, and you can also get a newsletter. So check out Patreon for that. Would also love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review.
Give us
Apple
5 stars.
Podcasts. Give us 5 stars and write us a good review. If you write us a positive review, we'll read it on the show. We've read tons of them on the show. We love all the good reviews that you guys leave us. Thank you so much. So keep doing that and keep smashing those 5 stars when you can. You can follow us on socials. We are at Movies That Made Us Gay on Instagram and Facebook.
And Twitter at NTMUGPod.
Yes, indeed. You can follow me. My name is Pete. I am on Instagram and Twitter at Peter Lasagna.
And I'm Oscar Scott on Twitter, Scott Youngballer on Instagram.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, you guys. Go check us out there. Until next week, we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.